Welcome to the Parenting on the Spectrum show with board-certified behavior analyst and infant-toddler development specialist Teresa Alexander Inman. Parenting on the Spectrum dives into real stories, challenges, and triumphs, offering invaluable insights and support for families on your unique journey. Let's get into the episode.
Welcome. Today my guest is Miss Ash Beckham. She is a mom, an author, an advocate, and I know there's something else that I'm forgetting, Ash, and you'll remind me when you get up here. And she's trying to do all of that seamlessly. And we say all the best, Ash, because we know it's not an easy feat. Welcome, Ash.
Absolutely. Thanks, Teresa. I'm so excited to be here.
You're welcome. So what did I forget?
Speaker. That's it. Just I talk a lot.
Okay.
I talk a lot too. So
Now, wouldn't that be the one that I should have remembered, seeing as we're here speaking?
uh,
Oh my goodness. So why all this, Ash? What message are you trying to give up, to put out there in the world?
I think that there's, to sum it up, it's just that your individuality matters. Like the fabric of our society, of our communities, of our families is based on our individuality. And how do we not only allow that to thrive within each of us, whether we're an adult or a kid listening to this, but also how do we honor and support that in the families around us? There we go. In the little imperfections like that, right? Like things just happen. And you can't know you if you don't know your dogs, right? And so how do we really get to know, with no judgment, with curiosity, the differences we all have that makes our interaction so amazing?
Exactly. Now, it's really interesting that just happened, and your comment, love it, because I'm thinking if this was a child, we would respond so much differently, right? Stop it. Mommy's doing this and blah, 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 blah. Instead of, like you said, approaching it with curiosity, right? Understanding that my attention has been taken from my child and I'm giving it here to Ash and to you, the audience. And this is why they're probably acting the way they are, instead of, telling a 2-year-old they should know better.
Right, absolutely. And sometimes there's malintent. I guess if you can look at, we've all had the kid that stared straight at us and poured the Fruit Loops on the ground, right? Like we know that sometimes there's defiance, but I think rarely is there malintent, right? And so we bring the baggage that we have of the stress of the day and all the things and cooking the dinner and paying the bills and doing everything. And so we so often have a reaction instead of a response. And the difference in that is just amazing in where we go with our kid from that point.
Exactly. And I just heard somebody in my head ask, so what would we do if that child just looked at you and poured the Cheerios on the floor?
Right. It depends. So much of it, I think in the moment we don't think this, but it depends on the space that I'm in. Like talking to you, hearing the dog bark, like something like that. When we realize that life isn't perfect, I think we're just so much more open to the humor of it. Right now, if it's a third time it's happened, and that's the end of the Cheerios, and tomorrow morning there's going to be hell to pay when there's nothing to eat. I think we get frustrated in a bit of a way, but I think curiosity always starts with questions like, why? Do they want our attention? Do they like the way that sound hits the ground? Like there's always a why that's a benevolent why. And so much of what our kids are driven by is curiosity. And if we can meet that as much as our stress level allows, I think it really creates an opportunity for different questions, because if we can understand their why, they're much more open to understand our why not, right? That what our response is, but we have to meet them in that zone of curiosity.
Yes, yes, I love that answer. And yeah, it's so important, right? Because I never, until recently, the curiosity part, I'd always wonder, but then it was just always approaching something with curiosity, approaching a child with curiosity was really new, like until I started working with the really young ones. The older
Sure.
ones, I worked in juvenile justice for a long time, and we'd ask the why that puts their defenses up, and and then they'd be like, well, it just wasn't, it didn't serve anyone doing it that way. So I've learned to
Sure.
be curious in a different way, approaching it differently with young children in a way that they don't feel, that they've done something wrong. Because again, like you said, maybe it's the sound, maybe just whatever it is, like that they're curious about and they're trying to, or maybe it's your reaction that they're curious about.
Absolutely. And what happens when you say no and I do it anyway, right? Like it's all about finding boundaries, and it's our job as parents and caregivers to kind of set those gentle boundaries. But I think, it's like it's curiosity with no attachment to right. Like I'm not trying to convince you of anything. Like genuine curiosity, I think as parents, it's a um that's something that we don't have every day, that we don't have time for, we don't have space for, of genuine curiosity. Not a why did you do that? But, buddy, we've talked about that before. What made it happen this time? What is it about that? What sensation are you seeking? What sort of input are you looking for that you're not getting that motivated you to do that, right? Like, and again, like you and I sit here and say this, and my kid's about to walk in the door, but I don't have any kids here. You've got your dog there. Like, it's easy in a vacuum to say it, and when you're in the thick of it. But if it isn't about doing it perfect, it's about realizing when we do it away and want to do it better the next time. I think there's so much awareness about that we're responsible for what we bring to the table. And our reaction that so often sets a tone, like you said earlier, right? Like our response is equally a part of it.
Yes, yes. And not judging yourself, right? Because then I think that's what you're saying when you talk about, just doing it better next time, instead, because you don't know what you don't know. So instead of, oh man, I can't believe blah, 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 because then your child's seeing all this.
Hey,
So
buddy, can you
nice.
say hi to Miss Teresa?
Hi.
Thanks, bud. Love you. I'll be up as soon as I'm done. Okay.
Okay, Mom.
All right. Thanks, babe. Thanks.
I love that.
Perfect.
Yes, yes. And it's so much more fun because we're live. I love it.
Right? I know. I was like, oh man, well then maybe they can edit it out. And then I read through the notes, and I was like, oh my goodness, it's live. And I was like, well, that's life. That's life with kids, and that's kind of part of what we're all working with. And we don't get to pick when the bus comes, right? We just adapt.
Exactly, exactly. And just being prepared, I think, to when we when we do our self-care routine, when we engage in some kind of self-care, then it makes it easier to roll with those punches.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked earlier. I'm in Colorado, and I always think of, and you can do it kind of with any sport, but here skiing or snowboarding, right? If you're riding down and there's bumps and you stiffen, you like lock out your knees, you're going to get tossed. There's no way you have no shocks, right? But when you're calm, when you bend your knees, when you can absorb those bumps in the road, you get through so much easier. Even though so often our gut reaction, if you were with our kid in a store and they have a tantrum or they do the thing, and and everybody looks, and we feel or real or perceive the judgment happens, right? Our ability, like you said, to just roll with it is so rooted in where we are with our self-care, and again, like how we land in that situation in any given day. A couple days ago, we were every day this week we've been late for school, but 2 days ago, and I was just like, the later we got, the more stressed out I got, the tighter my grip got, and the worse I got, and the worse the day went. And the next day, for whatever reason, with some intention, but I was like, I can't make the traffic stop. Like, there's no point. It doesn't matter if I should have gotten up a half an hour earlier, or how are we up for 2 hours and still can't get out the door on time? Like, none of that mattered. It just where I was and what I was missing by not being present, and we just kind of rolled with it. And for my kids and for me, it was such a better experience of just just softening just a little bit into it. So again, it's not easy to do. I had back-to-back days and couldn't do it the same way twice, but something that you're aware of when you try it a different way, I think more likely than not you're going to get a different outcome, and it's going to be more the outcome that you want.
Yes, yes. How did you get so wise, Miss Ash?
I don't know. I think kids, right? Like, I think that's such a huge piece of it is like they're just the way they see the world, the way that they're so curious and trusting and loving. And I remember, you come home from work and they don't care if you had a bad day, right? Like you could have bombed a presentation and you walk home and you walk in the door and they love you just the same. Like you can that it's just so unconditional and so reverent a lot of the times, sometimes not, but you know what I mean? For the most part, like they know your heart, I think truly more than anyone else. And that when the world doesn't necessarily see you the way you want to be seen and your kids do, I think that's a lot of times the self-care that you need.
Oh, that is so beautiful. It is. And embrace that because, so often we walk in tired from work and it's just like, you got to get dinner done. You've got to do this. You've got to do that. But I think if you just take that moment and embrace your child and let them feel seen and heard, that really makes a difference for the rest of your day instead of trying to rush through things. Because those couple of minutes that you take to do that and acknowledge and see them, it's going to save you so much more time on the back end when they do something like, pour the cereal or throw something to get to get your attention.
Yeah, 1,000%. And there's study after study that says it's more significant to have 5 minutes of uninterrupted full attention with your kid than 30 minutes of sitting with them multitasking, right? Like you think you're doing the thing, but to get 5 minutes where they have all of you is like it's your putting that deposit in the bank of the trust for later, of the defiance, of the seeking attention, right? It's not that it's going to make it perfect, but it's so much more efficient to just be there with them, connect in that moment when you first walk in the door, set the things down, the dinner can wait 5 minutes, and then move on to truly connect, see what they need, tell them how your day was, right? Like genuinely interact with them is so much better than sitting on the couch with your laptop open, finishing up a few things at work, counting it as 30 minutes while they watch their show, right? And it feels more efficient, I think, on its face, but long term when you're talking about kind of like you said, investing in what later in the evening is going to look like, how bad are they going to push back on bath, all of the things you've kind of made your early deposit in that and you've built that connection and trust.
Absolutely. Yes. Miss Ash, tell us a little bit about your advocacy work.
Yeah, so I work with different organizations, nonprofit organizations and corporations in bringing their inclusivity and inclusive leadership into the professional development that they do. So knowing that all kinds of diversity are valued at work and that it's not bringing somebody in despite their diversity, but because of it, that gives us the most enriched organizations. They're more creative, they have better recruitment and retention. So I work in that space to have help establish and developing leaders bring inclusivity into part of their leadership personal brand.
Awesome. And that is so important. I mean, we're women of color, and
Mhm.
it's just important that there is diversity, of all kinds. I think of autistic people who are being allowed to, well, I shouldn't say allowed, who are in so many different positions and excelling. But nobody would have known that if they just said, well, he's autistic and he probably can't do it, or she's autistic and all the ands and buts, or she's a woman and, whatever it is. So that is so vital because, we teach children, like you said, to be, to love and embrace themselves. And
Yes.
then they grow up and they try to get a job and it's like, well, they're excluded because of, you know, something that doesn't even matter.
Right, and these preconceived notions of what that sort of label means. And again, that goes whether that's based on race, religion, sexual orientation, gender expression, neurodiversity. And I've noticed in the work that I do, those things used to be very siloed, right? And they
Mhm.
wouldn't talk about one. You would have to go to an LGBTQ event, and that's all they would talk about, right? But I think people are understanding that when we look at all of these diversities as necessary and additive, that I have seen in all of the conferences that I go to, neurodiversity is something that people are talking about now, right? I feel like there was maybe this threshold of professional engagement you could have based on where on the spectrum you were. And now it's something that people are talking about openly, that those accommodations are being made as a level of inclusion in the most high achieving organizations. And so I think that neurodiversity, from what I have seen, is in the forefront of diversity in the workplace inclusion efforts across the board.
Oh, and so needed.
Ah,
I know it was taboo in the past. I know some places where it still is taboo because people don't understand neurodiversity. They think, even some parents, well, he's being bad. Really, I say that word with, I cringe because I really don't like that.
sure.
Good and bad for me, they're so judgmental. So I
Ah,
avoid using them. But, they look at, because again, we judge when we don't understand. We judge what we don't understand and who we don't understand based on, criteria that I don't even know where it came from. Maybe one person using it, and a
right.
one.
Right. And I think that it's fear, right? We like find it's like in our body, in our DNA to like sameness and fear difference, right? So that's very, reptilian in that part of our brain. Like that's where that comes out. But as evolved humans, right? Your first thought is not necessarily a problem. It's your second thought, right? Like, what do you think of then next? And your first action. We can intercept that and decide to land on curiosity, right? And to be comfortable being uncomfortable, to not know what that's going to be, because all of it is in relation, right? Like, I don't know what it means to be autistic. I am now going to interact with somebody. I have all of these preconceived notions of what that means and I don't know how to be, so I'm just going to avoid, right? It's the strategy of avoidance for safety, which again, when it was like a saber-toothed tiger, sure, that makes sense, right? But now we have to intercept that and make these logical, thoughtful, responsive actions instead of a reaction. And
Yes.
I think it's so important as parents that we show our kids that, right? Like whatever diversity bucket we fall in, that's not the only one we show our kids. We show them all diversity because I think then all of a sudden we get intersectionality, but then the multidimensional nature of it, right? That if you get enough differences in the same room, there starts to be sameness and difference. And that's what we're looking for. But our kids have to be able to be in those spaces and exist despite some discomfort, despite some uneasiness, with the trust that people are good.
Yes. And I think that's why inclusion is so important in schools. You brought to mind a little girl I was contracting with, a preschool, and there was a little girl who needed a device to help her walk. And there was she had some mobility, some struggles with mobility. And I remember the teacher sharing with me that mom used to come to help her with lunch, and she told mom no, it's okay, because none of the other children had their moms coming. And also, mom would bring a bib for her to wear, and nobody else was wearing a bib. So she didn't want to wear a bib. Let me tell you, she didn't need that bib after a while because she imitated what she saw in her peers, and they had so much compassion. I mean, the things that she truly struggled with and she accepted help with, they were there to offer their help, and they did. And imagine, these are like 3 and 4 year olds who are showing compassion and empathy and just being so helpful. And just that is so beautiful. And when we
Ah,
expose children oh, go ahead, I could talk
no,
forever.
no, no. They just gave me the chills. Keep going.
Yeah. No, I was just saying, when we expose children to other people, then it just, they just shine. It's just, you just see the pureness in them because they have an innate, I believe it's innate to help and to care and to just love.
Absolutely. And they don't, it's not the us versus them, right? Like by virtue of the fact that she was in the class, she was an us. We're an us. This is our community. And so if you are one of us, then we help each other. We pick up toys together. We do all of the things. And the beauty of that teacher to say no and to not want to hurt the mom's feelings, but I mean, teachers are unbelievable in I feel like they so much more objectively see the what our kids can do, the promise that's there when we as parents I feel like get so protective in all the stuff that all the baggage that we bring. And it really when you get into schools, especially 3 and 4 year olds, that it's just so much more simple than we make it.
It is, it is. And I get it. Parents, we want our children's lives to be perfect. We want them to be happy. How
Yeah.
practical is it for them to be happy all the time, right? So when something sad happens, they don't know how to manage that. So it's important that we allow them to feel the different feelings, be uncomfortable so that they get the moment that they get uncomfortable in a different situation, it's not like the world's coming to an end.
Absolutely, and be uncomfortable at 3 and 4 and not 13 and 14. Like, be uncomfortable for the first time, I guess. You'll be uncomfortable at all of those ages. But when you have kids that have never been told no, when you have kids that have never been challenged, have never had to do it on their own, I mean, I feel like you have this, when we have a my youngest or my oldest that just came down was having some anxiety stuff going to school and had a challenge and got through it and found support in the school and like did all of the things that he needed to do and he got home and it was just a really hard day and I said, but buddy, you did it, right? Like you got to the other side of that and you leaned on the people that were near you and you had the space that you need and you learned that you could show up exactly as you are on any given day at school and they're there for you, right? Like and of course as a parent I got the text that I was couldn't get to the school fast enough but I was like, well, okay, hang on, you have to just take that breath and take that pause and think of the long game because like you said we want to like swoop in and fix everything so quickly and make it perfect and curate all of the things but then what do they learn, right? Because like eventually we're not going to be there,
Yeah.
something's going to happen and we don't want them to have the messaging of you can't handle that, here, let mom do it, let me take care, I got it, right? Like they need to know like in their bones that they can do it.
Yes, empower them by allowing them to navigate a situation and imagine that feeling that they get. It's like, oh my gosh, I did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When they get that, you get that pit in your stomach and like that's not something to shy away from, right? Like that is a very basic human sensation of like I'm doing something I'm not comfortable with. And sometimes that's your warning sign to, step off the high dive or do, backtrack in whatever way you need to. But when that comes up, how do you sit with that and then make the decision to move forward anyway? Like that's true courage, right? It's not having fear, it's feeling fear and moving forward anyway. And they learn in these, to them, high stakes, grand scheme of things, low stakes environments, right? Like so much easier then than when things get more complicated the older they get.
Oh, yes, yes. And, things always come to mind when people say things. And I remember working with a family, the young man, so there was a 3-year-old and a 19-month-old. And mom said, she wanted me to help her out. So we went to the store because she said every time they went to the store, the little guy had to come up with she had to buy a balloon for him every time. And I was just like, no, no, you don't. What if, you don't have it? But we have the money, and we grew up with nothing. And I just want to make sure he's happy. He said things don't make children happy. And then she recalled, okay, of course, every time after, he forgets about the balloon within a couple of minutes. And yes, it's only $1. However, a couple of weeks later, when I went back to her house, she was almost in tears thanking me for, the importance of telling her child no. And I said, well, of course, it's what I do. And she said, no, you don't understand. And she told me about her friend whose son at 13 years old took his life. And I was
Oh,
like, what happened? She says, well, she was there apparently, or, the mom told her the story about the police officer asking her what happened. And the mom said, he asked for something. I said no to him. And the police officer asked, well, what happened when you said no in the past? And she said, I've never said no to him in the past. So now
Mhm.
no is rejection. No means you hate me. That's what I'm getting from that, right? Because why else, right? Would a
Sure.
13-year-old do that? And I mean, it was just so, it's like, I couldn't, I just, yeah, I have no words. I still don't have.
Oh,
And,
that is just
not blaming
heartbreaking.
mom. She didn't know
No.
because she was trying to make her child happy.
Yeah, everybody's doing their best. You
Hmm.
just don't know, but also I feel like the way that that isn't in vain is sharing the story and changing somebody else's perspective as the motivator to say no when it's really hard, right? To draw those boundaries and do the things that you need to do as a parent, even when it's tough, because it's that long game. When you're in it, I feel like when you're in the thick of it, it is really hard to see the long game.
Oh, it is. It really is. And you want to see that smile. You don't want your child, stomping off and telling you that they hate you.
Of
However,
course.
it's not personal. It really isn't personal.
Which is so hard because, like, everything you do to and for them is personal with
Yeah.
so much intent, but what comes back at you isn't always that, and to make that delineation sometimes is hard. I feel like you need to try to get the perspective of when the roles were reversed, right, and you were on the other side, and you didn't mean everything you said. It's just and that's also part of it. I think so much of it is, like, they're just trying to regulate their emotions. Right, like those outbursts, like they're just trying to figure it out, and if they can like they feel safe enough to emote towards you, I think that is a blessing, right? And it doesn't feel good. It's hard as a parent. I feel like the self-care comes in there as well, right? To make sure that you're getting it. But I mean, the last thing you want is for them to feel that their feelings are too big for you to handle,
Exactly.
right? You just want to be like, whatever it is, I'm here for it. And we're gonna work through it, and we're gonna figure it out, and we're gonna figure out why, what you said hurt my feelings. What's going on that's making you so angry, right? Like, you can make it not about you and get to the bottom of it because you know that they love you, right?
Exactly. Yes. Ash, time has just flown by.
Oh, can we do it again sometime? I hope we can.
We certainly can. Just tell me when. Yes,
I
yes.
love it.
So awesome. Anything you want to leave our audience with before, you know, this broadcast ends?
Oh, no, I think just the thing that we started with, right, was like, that we want our kids to have that feeling in the pit of their stomach and do it anyway. And I think my advice to all the parents and caregivers would be the same thing, right? Whether it's for you or with your child, like do something every day that makes you like a little bit nervous. Make sure that you're not playing it so safe that you lose touch with that. That pit in your stomach can be a really good North Star when you need it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ash. I've really enjoyed chatting with you, and we will do it again.
Oh, I can't wait, Teresa. Thanks for all you do. This podcast is so amazing.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. And to our audience, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Reach out to Ash. How? We didn't even.
Ash at ashbeckham.com.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. All righty. Thank you so much for watching.